Winning the Heisman is supposed to mean that you are the best player in college football, but that success in college doesn't always translate to the NFL level. Today we're going to answer the age-old question: what happened to every quarterback to win the Heisman Trophy since 1970? Starting off, we have Jim Plunkett, who tore up the Pac-8 with a cannon for an arm, throwing for over 2,700 yards in his Heisman winning season, while also leading the conference in passing every year that he played. He got drafted first overall by the Patriots, but they were a mess, and Plunkett looked completely lost out there, especially in 1972, where he threw just 8 touchdowns compared to 25 interceptions. He didn't have a winning season in 5 years with the Patriots, and by 1978, he was riding the bench in Oakland, throwing 0 passes. At 30 years old, his career looked dead. Then, Dan Pastorini broke his leg during the 1980 season, and suddenly Plunkett became Oakland's starter. And at that moment, a new player was born. 2 Super Bowl rings and a Super Bowl MVP later, Plunkett pulled off maybe the most unlikely comeback ever.
When they give the Comeback Player of the Year award, Jim Plunkett is like the poster child for that.
In 1971, we had Pat Sullivan winning the Heisman, leading the SEC with 20 touchdown passes. Atlanta grabbed him in the second round, but Sullivan didn't start one game until his 3rd season. When he finally got his chance in 1974, the guy managed just 4 career starts in total over the next 2 seasons. By 28 years old, after trying and failing to play for Washington and San Francisco, he was done. His career numbers were just 5 touchdowns to 16 interceptions, which is pretty painful. But he later did find his real calling on the sidelines, working his way up as the head coach of Samford College. Now, it took over a decade, but a quarterback finally won the Heisman again when Doug Flutie showed his magic at Boston College in 1984. That Hail Mary against Miami made him a legend, and his 1984 season was incredible. Over 3,400 yards passing and averaging 314 yards per game, the Heisman Trophy was a lock, but the pros, not so much.
If you already reconcile yourself to the probability that the pros will probably pass you by?
I'd love to take an opportunity to try in pro football, but from what I've heard and people have told me, I really don't think it's going to be in the future for me.
Every NFL team had the same worry, that the guy was just too short, but the USFL offered him $7 million to become the highest paid rookie ever. Because of that, he didn't get drafted in the NFL until the 11th round, basically being an afterthought. Well, listen, long before the USFL folded, Flutie bounced around the NFL getting traded and cut. Most guys would have quit then, but he went to Canada instead. Then, at 36 years old, he signed with the Bills, made the Pro Bowl, and won Comeback Player of the Year. I mean, what a story. You just don't get much more impressive than that in terms of heart and determination. And he kept playing too. That final season in 2005, he was 43 years old. In 1986, Tampa Bay thought that they had found their franchise guy in Vinny Testaverde. The Miami star threw 26 touchdown passes with just 9 interceptions in his Heisman year. But pretty quickly in the pros, Testaverde became the interception king, a title that no quarterback wants. He threw 35 picks in his second year, leading the league in the worst way possible. In fact, he led the NFL in interceptions 4 times, and he didn't have a winning record as a starter until his 8th season. Not exactly what you want from your first overall pick. But just like Flutie, the guy kept on playing and making money. He retired as a 2-time Pro Bowler after 21 seasons in the league. Andre Ware was putting up video game numbers at Houston: 4,699 yards and 46 touchdowns. Detroit grabbed him 7th overall in the 1990 draft. The problem was that Ware only knew one system: Houston's run-and-shoot offense. In Detroit's offense, he looked kinda lost. He only had 3 wins in 6 starts over 4 seasons in the league, which pretty much tells you everything you need to know. After bouncing around Canada and even Germany chasing that college magic, Ware landed in the broadcast booth. He's right up there with the most disappointing Heisman winners of all time when it comes to actually playing in the pros. Moving on, we have Ty Detmer's 1990 season, which was absolutely insane. 5,188 yards and 41 touchdowns at BYU, including an upset win over the #1 seeded Miami Hurricanes. But he still fell to the 9th round of the NFL draft. Scouts said he was too small, threw too many interceptions, and was too much of a system guy. And to be fair, the guy did throw 65 interceptions in 4 years at college. He finally got a bit of a shot in 1996 playing for the Eagles, and in 11 starts he went 7-4 and led the Eagles to the playoffs. Sure, they ended up losing to San Francisco, but after so many years of waiting, the guy at least proved that he belonged. Detmer spent about half the next season as Philly's starter, but he didn't see much success unfortunately and slowly faded out of the league. Gino Torretta is another guy who got completely ignored on draft day. After leading Miami with 3,060 yards and 19 touchdowns to just 7 interceptions in his Heisman year, he dropped to the 7th round. Minnesota thought maybe they could develop him, and that unfortunately never happened. Torretta played 1 game with the Vikings, then 1 more with Seattle 4 years later. His entire NFL career consisted of just 41 passing yards. The guy who led one of college football's best programs ended up being a financial advisor just like most other 9-to-5ers, which just goes to show you, sometimes that jump to the pros is more like jumping off a cliff. Charlie Ward, on the other hand, got to choose between 2 sports at the pro level. After winning the Heisman and Florida State's first title, he could either chase his NFL dreams or play point guard for the New York Knicks, who just drafted him in the 1st round. The NFL made it easy on him. Scouts saw him as a 3rd to 5th round pick. Ward's response, 1st round or I'm out. So when nobody stepped up to take him, he walked away from football completely. Ward became the only Heisman winner to play pro basketball instead of football. While other quarterbacks fought for roster spots, this guy was running plays for the Knicks. In 1996, Danny Wuerffel was Steve Spurrier's dream quarterback at Florida. He threw 39 touchdown passes in his Heisman year while leading the Gators to their first ever title. New Orleans grabbed him in the 4th round, but his pinpoint accuracy seemed to be gone at that point. Wuerffel went 0-2 as a rookie with twice as many interceptions as touchdowns. Over 6 seasons, he threw just 12 touchdown passes total and played for 4 different teams. After football, Wuerffel found his real purpose in life with Desire Street Ministries in New Orleans, helping rebuild poor neighborhoods, so at least he won off the field. Chris Weinke took the weirdest path to the Heisman ever. After 6 years playing minor league baseball, he enrolled at Florida State at the age of 25, which is basically ancient for college football. I mean, even entering the NFL at 25 is considered old for a rookie, but the guy threw for 4,167 yards and put up 33 touchdowns in his Heisman year. Carolina thought that his maturity and baseball background would actually help him. Instead, Weinke went 1-14 as a starter after missing a game in week number 9, which is the worst record in Panthers history. 2 wins in 20 career starts pretty much says it all. In fact, that's the worst winning percentage in NFL history for players who have at least played 18 games. He didn't end up playing again after 2007, but after he retired, he did find success in business and coaching. Meanwhile, Eric Crouch was standing on business at Nebraska. He was a dual threat guy and had 1,115 rushing yards in 2001. St. Louis drafted him in the 3rd round, thinking that he would be a good fit for the greatest show on turf, Rams. But here's the thing, they wanted him to play receiver. Crouch didn't like the idea of switching positions at all. Then a leg injury killed his rookie year before it ever started, and he retired without taking 1 NFL snap. But he kept chasing the dream everywhere, NFL Europe, Canada, you name it. Now he sells playground equipment in Omaha. In 2002, we finally got a guy who turned into a legitimate weapon in the NFL. Carson Palmer went 1st overall to Cincinnati and led the Bengals to their first playoff appearance in 15 years. He made 2 Pro Bowls with them, and things were looking pretty solid. He suffered a brutal knee injury in the 2005 playoffs that could have ended everything, but Palmer fought back. Then after he parted ways with Cincy, he reinvented himself in Arizona, leading the Cardinals to an NFC Championship game at the age of 36.
He put us on his back, and he took us for a ride this year. He was amazing.
Palmer retired after 14 seasons with over 46,000 passing yards and 294 touchdowns. But I will say that Heisman winner to NFL success thing really didn't last too long, because Jason White dominated college football with 40 touchdowns to win his Heisman in 2003. Then after a 2004 campaign that saw him come in third for Heisman voting, draft day came around and went without his name being called at all. Basically, everybody knew his knees were done. Tennessee finally threw him a contract in 2005, giving him one last shot at his dream. He showed up ready to prove everybody wrong, but his body just didn't allow him to do so. 3 months later, White retired before taking one NFL snap. He was the only Heisman winner who tried to go pro but never made it at any level. Now he runs memorabilia stores in Oklahoma, along with owning a few other companies. Okay, for 2004, we're heading back to USC now, where Matt Leinart had some pretty big shoes to fill. And he really did a solid job in college. Leinart was great every season at USC with 99 touchdown passes over 3 years. But in the NFL, Leinart peaked as a rookie with 11 touchdowns and 12 picks. Yeah, when that's your peak, you know things are not going too well. He basically rode the bench behind Kurt Warner in Arizona. Then when Kurt Warner retired, it was supposed to be his moment to shine, but he lost the job to Derek Anderson. That pretty much tells you how far this guy had fallen. Troy Smith's Heisman season was one of the most dominant that we have ever seen, with over 91% of first place votes, a record that stood for 13 years. Then Florida destroyed Ohio State 41-14 and his draft stock plummeted. Smith finished that game with only 35 passing yards and negative 29 rushing yards. At 6 feet tall, Smith was already fighting height concerns when Baltimore grabbed him in the 5th round, and then when Joe Flacco showed up, everybody forgot about Smith entirely. His best moment came in San Francisco, where he outdueled Sam Bradford in an overtime win, throwing for 356 yards without an interception. For that one game, Smith looked like the guy that fans hoped he would be. Then he faded into Canadian football. Okay, now we have a pretty popular name here. Where do we even start with Tim Tebow? It's hard to find anybody who put up numbers like Tebow's Heisman season. 32 passing touchdowns and 23 rushing. He became the first sophomore to ever win the award and became known for his insane will to win.
Tebow, flushed again. He'll keep it. Tim on the run. Whoa, head-on collision.
He was about as good of a college player as you could possibly get, but scouts were worried about his throwing motion and whether he could read NFL defenses correctly. Denver took him 25th anyways, and in 2011, Tebow made everybody believe, or at least made everybody watch. His mechanics were unorthodox to say the least, but he did lead the Broncos to the playoffs and shocked Pittsburgh with an 80-yard overtime bomb to Demaryius Thomas. Then Peyton Manning came to town and Tebow's career was basically over. He tried baseball, broadcasting, whatever, but I've got to admit, it's kind of a shame that he didn't get another shot at being a starter somewhere with a full offseason, but maybe it's for the best. All right, moving on to the 2008 winner. Sam Bradford had 50 touchdown passes, only 8 interceptions, and over 4,700 yards to win the thing pretty convincingly. The Rams made him the easiest first pick ever, basically, and handed him a $78 million contract with $50 million guaranteed. But that contract became the poster child for why rookie deals needed a change. Bradford kept getting hurt, missing huge chunks of time in 2011 and 2013. In the end, he played for a bunch of different teams, but his best year was in Minnesota, where he had a 71.6% completion rate to lead the league. But even then, the Vikings went 7-8 in games that he started in, and at the end of the day, as accurate as he could be when it was all going right, he was basically another Heisman bust. But you can't say that same thing about the next guy on our list. Cam Newton ran for nearly 1,500 yards and 20 touchdowns at Auburn during his Heisman season, while throwing for another 30. Then he showed up to the NFL and threw for 400 yards in back-to-back games as a rookie.
On the third down, here comes the blitz. Newton puts it up. He's got a man, and he completes it. Steve Smith, touchdown, Carolina.
Newton's 2015 MVP season was one of the most dominant in recent memory. 15 wins, 45 total touchdowns, and the kind of swagger that just made every Panthers game so much more entertaining to watch. That Super Bowl loss to Denver really hurt, and he never really lived down the footage of him not diving for that fumble, and injuries eventually caught up to him. But we've covered 40 years of Heisman Trophy winners so far, and he's at the top of our list as it stands in terms of impact on the game. The 2012 draft was one of the most exciting for quarterbacks in a long time. You had Andrew Luck going first, but RG3's speed and arm talent had Washington trading up to grab him second overall. And his rookie year looked awesome. They won the division title, he won Rookie of the Year, and in many ways, he looked better than Andrew Luck.
Perfect on the year and goal to goal, and still perfect.
A long look and fires. Touchdown, Washington.
Then that playoff game against Seattle happened. Griffin's knee buckled and everything changed. He was never really the same after tearing his ACL and LCL, and the coaches were scared to let him loose after that. Plus, without the mobility, you could tell he really struggled reading defenses. Kirk Cousins took his job, Griffin bounced around as a backup, and then became an ESPN analyst until they fired him in 2024. These days, he's got a pretty good podcast that you can actually find on YouTube. Johnny Football is another guy who was just electric in college. He had over 1,400 rushing yards while also throwing for over 3,700. Pretty much everybody loved to tune in and watch him scramble around making magic happen.
Snap from Patrick Lewis. Four-man Alabama rush. Got him. No, they didn't. Oh, my gracious. How about that?
After becoming the first freshman to ever win the Heisman Trophy, Cleveland grabbed him 22nd overall, hoping to bottle up that college magic. Instead, they got chaos. Manziel went 0-2 as a rookie with more bad news headlines than touchdowns.
The Cleveland Browns have confirmed to CNN Sports that quarterback Johnny Manziel entered a treatment program on Wednesday.
After just 6 starts in 9 games in year number 2, he was done. The CFL actually tried to give him another shot, but the magic was gone. Basically, he was never ready to even try and make it in the pros. Jameis Winston made history as the youngest Heisman winner ever, leading Florida State to a perfect season and a national championship. Tampa Bay grabbed him first overall in 2015, betting on that arm strength and clutch factor. But Winston's NFL career has been kinda crazy to say the least. His 5,000-yard season in 2019 sums it up perfectly. Yeah, he did lead the league in passing yards, but he also led the league in interceptions with 30. In the years since, his speeches have become memes, and his decision-making has stayed, let's just say, questionable the whole time. Last season in Cleveland, Winston showed that he was still the same guy. In Week 13 against the Broncos, he threw for 497 yards and 4 touchdowns. Then he killed drives with awful interceptions that basically cost them the game. But I will tell you guys one thing right now. If you are starting a wide receiver in fantasy football and Jameis Winston is throwing him the ball, you know damn well he's getting you some points. But at least Jameis is still trying to make plays, unlike the next guy on our list. Marcus Mariota's Oregon offense was awesome to watch. 4,454 yards and 42 touchdowns with only 4 interceptions in 2014. Tennessee grabbed him second overall, and in his first NFL start, it was literally perfect. A 158.3 passer rating against Tampa Bay had everybody thinking the Titans made the correct choice.
On the play action, it's Mariota to Kendall Wright. Wright is off to the races, and it's the first touchdown of Marcus Mariota's career.
But that perfection didn't last long. Injuries and inconsistency killed what looked promising, and even his best season in 2016 couldn't get the Titans into the playoffs. Now he's been a backup, bouncing between Las Vegas, Atlanta, Philly, and Washington. He's 34-40 as a starter with decent numbers but 0 playoff success, but I think it's safe to say it's pretty unlikely that he's going to win a starting job again. Okay, nearly 50 years into this thing, and we're getting into the gold standard of players. which is kind of funny when you think about how everybody told Lamar Jackson to switch to wide receiver coming out of college. A whole lot of people thought Lamar just wouldn't be able to make it as a pro quarterback. And after going through the list of Heisman failures so far, I guess you could see where they were coming from, but Lamar wasn't having any part of that.
But I'm a quarterback. That's all I've been all my life. I don't know where it comes from, but I'm here to be a quarterback, not anything else.
And he's proved everybody wrong in the best possible way. His 2019 MVP season was legendary. 36 passing touchdowns and over 1,200 rushing yards while leading Baltimore to the top seed in the AFC.
He made pro football look like high school highlights. Like, he's just doing stuff out there that there's not many guys that can do that.
He's still getting better too. He doesn't quite have Vic's insane burst, but his elusiveness might even be better. After 2 league MVPs, he's proven dual threat quarterbacks can dominate at the very highest level. And he might be the best mobile quarterback that we have ever seen. Baker Mayfield walked on at Texas Tech, transferred to Oklahoma, and became the first walk-on ever to win the Heisman Trophy. Cleveland made him the first overall pick, hoping his swagger could finally break their quarterback curse. And to be honest, his rookie year was solid. He set the rookie touchdown record while ending Cleveland's huge losing streak dating back to 2016. In 2020, the Browns made the playoffs and even won their first playoff game since 1994. But in 2022, Cleveland traded for Deshaun Watson anyways, and for a minute it looked like Baker would never get another shot. Then he had his special game-winning drive with the Rams, and the Bucs threw him a lifeline, and the funny thing is, he's become the quarterback that the Browns really thought that they were going to get. Some people are even predicting that he might be an MVP candidate in 2025. And meanwhile, Deshaun Watson, well, there's just nothing good to say about that whole situation. Oklahoma had back-to-back Heisman winners when Kyler Murray replaced Baker Mayfield. He had 4,361 passing yards plus just over 1,000 rushing. The Oakland Athletics also drafted him 9th overall in the MLB. Arizona took him 1st overall anyways, making him the first guy ever drafted in the first round of both sports. Murray's been solid when he's healthy. He won Offensive Rookie of the Year, made 2 Pro Bowls, thrown for over 19,000 passing yards so far, but injuries just keep killing his momentum. In 2024, he finally played a full season again, so hopefully that can become more of a trend. With Marvin Harrison Jr. looking jacked and ready for year number 2, and them already starting out 1-0 at the time of making this video, the Cardinals could be a contender in the NFC West. Joe Burrow's 2019 season was arguably the greatest college performance ever. Over 5,600 passing yards, 60 touchdowns, undefeated, and a national championship. The jump from 16 touchdowns the year before to 60 is actually insane. Cincinnati grabbed him 1st overall, and Burrow immediately threw himself into the mix as one of the best pure passers in the NFL. As of right now, he's got the highest completion percentage in league history, and even Peyton Manning calls him his favorite quarterback to watch. The dude's just clutch when it matters the most.
I don't think it's possible to be any cooler than him when those moments come around.
If he had a defense, he would probably have been MVP last year. Oh, actually, he would have been MVP last year. The real sign of his quality is in those 2 losses to Baltimore, who were pretty much one of the best teams in the league last season. Burrow threw for 820 yards and 9 touchdowns in those games with only 1 interception against them. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see the Bengals dominate in 2025, but their defense hasn't changed much, so we're just going to have to see what happens. In 2021, it was Bryce Young's Heisman year. He broke Alabama's single-game passing record with 559 yards and looked like everything that you wanted in a modern quarterback. I mean, the guy was mobile, accurate, and came through in the clutch moments. He finished with 4,872 yards and 47 touchdowns. Carolina clearly loved that and made him the 1st overall pick, thinking that they'd finally found the guy to replace Cam Newton. Well, that has not gone to plan so far. Young went 2-16 as a starter and got benched after just 18 games. His confidence at that point was totally shot, with 3 picks and 0 touchdowns to start 2024. His quarterback rating was terrible, and he was on the road to looking like a huge bust.
One of the most lasting images that I've seen in the first 2 weeks is in the first week, Dave Canales went over to the bench where Bryce Young had just turned over the football yet again. And he sat down next to Bryce Young, stood next to him, and Bryce Young looked like a broken quarterback.
But then something just clicked late last season. Young fought his way back to the starting job and finished very strong with 7 touchdown passes and 0 interceptions over the last 3 games, plus 3 rushing touchdowns and 2 overtime wins. We're going to have to analyze what he does in 2025 to really see what he's made of. Caleb Williams put up such good numbers at USC that people started calling him generational. Chicago took him first overall because the Bears were desperate for a franchise quarterback, and Williams looked like the perfect guy to finally end their nightmare at the position. But his rookie year was basically a masterclass in growing pains. Williams went 5-12 while throwing 20 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, which is pretty solid for a rookie, but not what Chicago fans were hoping for. He did start to figure it out as time went on though. He had 10 touchdowns with 0 picks from weeks 12 to 16, but unfortunately the Bears still lost all 5 games. Williams was at his best when everything broke down and had to make magic happen. That's when you saw the arm talent and the athleticism that made him the top overall pick. Chicago switched around their offensive line this year, so his second season should hopefully be a lot better. One of the problems that Caleb had is that Jaden Daniels, who was picked right after him, just looked so good. He had one of the cleanest Heisman seasons you'll ever see. 40 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions while rushing for 1,134 yards and 10 more touchdowns. Washington grabbed him second overall, hoping this dual threat guy could turn their franchise around after years of mediocrity. And the turnaround was instant. I mean, he looked like a 10-year veteran from day one, setting rookie records with a 69% completion rate and 12 fourth quarter touchdown passes. His calmness in crunch time was just unreal in 2024.
Stops, cuts back, dropped the ball, picks it up, throws it towards the end zone, touchdown!
He's the modern NFL quarterback. Like, he's what everybody's looking for.
Washington went 12-5 and made it to the NFC Championship for the first time since 1991. Daniels threw for 822 yards and 5 touchdowns in the playoffs and also won Rookie of the Year. Basically, the next Heisman winning quarterback is going to have big shoes to fill. I think this list just goes to show you that winning the Heisman doesn't guarantee NFL success. In fact, I think it's just the opposite. It guarantees you expectations that you might never meet. But if you think these guys had crazy stories, wait till you hear what happened to these wide receivers who went in the top 3 overall picks.